Good afternoon, I'm Melissa Negrini with the latest breaking news report. We begin with Russia's 81st Victory Day celebrations, which held in Red Square, Moscow on Saturday. The annual national holiday commemorates the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II, and more specifically the surrender of German forces in Berlin on May 8, 1945. The day usually features military parades, wreath-laying ceremonies, fireworks, and veteran commemorations. However, this year's celebrations were scaled back significantly, reportedly due to security concerns related to the ongoing Ukraine conflict. Marking a first of its kind, North Korean soldiers marched on Red Square as a distinct unit, carrying the North Korean flag and a Victory Day banner alongside Russian troops.
Dear guests, I congratulate you on the Victory Day, on our sacred, bright, and most important holiday. We celebrate it with feelings of pride and love for our country, with an understanding of our shared duty to protect the interests and future of our motherland. We celebrate it with sincere gratitude to the great generation of the victors. We holistically honor the vows and legacy of the victory soldiers. The care for the motherland unites our entire country, the entire people of Russia, and the preservation of the memory of the events of the Great Patriotic War, its true history, true heroes, is a matter of honor for us. We will always remember the feat of the Soviet people, the fact that it was it who made a decisive contribution to the defeat of Nazism. He saved his country, he saved the world, he put an end to total, merciless evil. Our soldier made colossal losses, colossal sacrifices in the name of freedom and dignity of the peoples of Europe.
Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico traveled to Moscow to participate in their Victory Day celebrations, where he also met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Fico did not attend the military parade, but participated in related commemorative activities, such as laying flowers at memorials. The Russian commander-in-chief highlighted the gradual restoration of bilateral cooperation between the two countries and emphasized that Russia will do everything possible to meet Slovakia's energy needs and continue cooperation in all other areas of mutual interest. Prime Minister Fico in turn cautioned that they are having an iron curtain falling again, while he is supporting mutually beneficial friendly relations. This statement comes amid severe pressure and sanctions from the European Union to cut its reliance on Russian energy.
S podpredsedom Národnej rady Tiborom Gašparom, štátnym tajomníkom z Ministerstva zahraničných vecí Marekom Eštokom a ďalšími členmi slovenskej delegácie vraciam z návštevy Moskvy. Boli sme zablahoželať k najvýznamnejšiemu ruskému štátnemu sviatku, ku dňu víťazstva nad fašizmom a prejaviť úctu padlým v druhej svetovej vojne, osobitne 10 000 padlých vojakov Červenej armády pri oslobodzovaní Slovenska. Je nespochybniteľným faktom, že najväčšiu ťarchu a obete znášali národy bývalého Sovietskeho zväzu, osobitne Rusi. Je nepopierateľné, že sloboda a mier prišli na Slovensko z východu. Okrem slávnostného aktu kladenia kvetov k hrobu neznámeho vojaka Červenej armády pod Kremelským múrom a súvisiacimi oficialitami, ako bol spoločný obed vedúcich zahraničných delegácií s ruským prezidentom Vladimírom Putinom, som samozrejme prijal možnosť stretnúť sa na pracovnom stretnutí s ruskou delegáciou, vedenou práve ruským prezidentom. Stretnutie na 4 oči a potom v delegáciách trvalo 2 hodiny, čo nám dalo možnosť ísť do hĺbky problematiky vzájomných vzťahov medzi Slovenskom a Ruskom a medzinárodnej situácie. Zopakoval som to, čo hovorím otvorene. Odmietam novú železnú oponu medzi Európskou úniou a Ruskom. Osobitne sme sa venovali spolupráci v energetickej oblasti. Úmysel Európskej únie úplne sa odstrihnúť od ruských energií považujem za ideologicky orientovaný a škodlivý pre európsku konkurencieschopnosť. Vážení priatelia, pochopiteľne, že sme sa nevyhli ani vojne na Ukrajine. Ruskému prezidentovi som odovzdal odkaz od ukrajinského prezidenta Volodymyra Zelenského. Ten mi v pondelok v Arménsku na našom osobnom stretnutí povedal, že je pripravený na stretnutie s Vladimírom Putinom v akomkoľvek formáte. Odpoveď je zrozumiteľná. Ak má ukrajinský prezident záujem na stretnutí, mal by sa telefonicky spojiť s jeho ruským náprotivkom.
Prior to Fico's trip to Moscow, the European Parliament adopted a non-binding resolution urging the European Commission to launch rule of law conditionality proceedings that could lead to the freezing of EU funds for Slovakia. The EU alleges that Bratislava is backsliding on the rule of law under Fico's government and issued a warning to EU leaders not to attend Russia's celebrations, stating that any participation will not be taken lightly. However, Fico pushed back, stating that he has very strong reasons for visiting Moscow. One, to honor the immense sacrifices made by the Soviet peoples in defeating fascism during World War II, and to pay tribute to the Red Army soldiers who died liberating Slovakia.
Z reakcií ruského prezidenta Vladimíra Putina na vojnu na Ukrajine mi vyplynuli viaceré vážne odkazy pre mojich partnerov v Európskej únii. Opäť sa však potvrdilo, že je obrovskou chybou, ak sa s ruskou stranou nevedie rovnocenný politický dialog. Ak z Európskej únie prichádzajú len sankcie, ktoré mimochodom vedú len k vyššej sebestačnosti Ruska vo viacerých oblastiach. Ak z Európskej únie prichádzajú len vojnové pôžičky a podpora vojny, teda to, na čom sa Slovensko nezúčastňuje. Ak niektoré členské krajiny Európskej únie idú do takých absurdít, že nepovolia premiérovi členskej krajiny únie, aby pri ceste na oslavy víťazstva nad fašizmom preletel cez ich územie. Toto vzájomnú dôveru neposilňuje. Vážení priatelia, buďte kľudní, nechystám sa na žiadne recipročné opatrenia proti týmto krajinám. Ak budú potrebovať preletieť cez naše územie kdekoľvek a za akýmkoľvek účelom, nebudeme im v tom brániť. Bojovať treba za zásadné veci, nie za malichernosti. Mimochodom, v Jerevane som bol svedkom príkladu suverénnej zahraničnej politiky, tentokrát Azerbajdžanu, ktorého prezident pod čiernu zem zniesol Európsky parlament za rôzne deklarácie či rezolúcie prijímané proti tejto krajine. Prezident Alijev povedal pravdu, keď vyhlásil, že Európsky parlament by sa mal hlavne zaoberať európskymi problémami a tých máme neúrokom a nie klamať na adresu iných. Takýto odkaz posielam do Európskeho parlamentu aj ja zo Slovenska, najmä v súvislosti s poslednou perlou Európskeho parlamentu, keď odporúčal Európskej komisii pozastaviť nám európske fondy. Jediný dôvod, prečo by tak Európska
And following a special request from President Donald Trump, President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to pause hostilities for 3 days. The US Commander-in-Chief, in a post on Truth Social, stated that the ceasefire includes a suspension of all kinetic activity and a swap of 1,000 prisoners from each country, and expressed his gratitude toward both leaders for their cooperation. He emphasized that talks are continuing on ending this major conflict and that they are getting closer to reaching a deal every day.
You announced a 3-day ceasefire in the Ukraine-Russia war. Do you anticipate that will be getting longer than 3 days?
Could be. I mean, it could be. It'd be nice. I'd like to see it stop. Russia, Ukraine, it's the worst thing since World War II in terms of life. 25,000 young soldiers every month. It's crazy. So it could very well be.
Will you send your team to Moscow to negotiate further now that you know?
Well, I would do it. If I thought it would help, I'd do it. I'd love to see that war end. I've settled 8 wars and actually 9, and now it looks like we could have 10, but I would love to make that the 10th, I will tell you. I would love to see an end between Russia, Ukraine, that war.
President Vladimir Putin responded to reports that Zelensky had signaled readiness for a personal meeting, noting during a press briefing that such statements are not new and have been heard before. He also extended an invitation, saying that anyone who wishes to visit Moscow is welcome, provided that a final peace agreement has first been reached.
But since later there was a suggestion by the US president to have a swap that we also suggested to have on May 5th. And of course we welcomed this suggestion and we were open to doing this, and we did this. We extended the ceasefire for 2 more days in the hope to carry out this swap. I hope that we will eventually do this. And the second part of your question, the message, right. Mr. Fico told me about his meeting, and it was not really a message. I just heard for one more time that the Ukrainian side and Mr. Zelensky, they are ready to have a personal meeting, and we heard that before, so what can I say? We have never refused, I have never refused. So if they proposed a meeting, and those who want to meet, they can travel to Moscow and we will have a meeting. And we can meet in a third country as well, but only after there is an ultimate agreement regarding a peace deal that must be a long-term deal.
Stay tuned to any of our Loveworld networks to stay updated with all the latest breaking news. And now we move right into more updates from around the globe. With polling results finalized over the weekend, it was made abundantly clear that the British people are ready for change. During local elections in the United Kingdom late last week, voters in England chose around 5,000 council seats. Keir Starmer's Labour Party suffered significant losses, losing 1,496 seats and control of roughly 38 councils. On the flip side, Nigel Farage's Reform UK Party gained approximately 1,451 seats and control of over a dozen councils. These results indicate strong voter dissatisfaction with Labour's performance in government and are viewed as a midterm test on Keir Starmer's administration. Many celebrated the results on social media, calling it a huge defeat for Labour.
I am delighted to be here in the sunshine outside Havering Town Hall, which I can now say is under new management. And I'm absolutely and it's significant. It's our first win of a borough in London, and that in some ways goes against the trend, because the pattern that's emerging over the country is that Labour are being wiped out by Reform in many of their most traditional areas, and what you're going to see later on today is the Conservative Party being wiped out in their heartlands like Essex. So London goes a bit against the trend in that the Conservatives and Labour have held up in some of the other boroughs. But I think overall what's happened is a truly historic shift in British politics. We've been so used to thinking about politics in terms of left and right, and yet what Reform are able to do is to win in areas that have always been Conservative, but equally we're proving in a big way we can win in areas that Labour have dominated, frankly, since the end of World War I. At the moment, we're winning 1 in 3 of all the seats that are up, but I genuinely think the best is yet to come. It's a big, big day, not just for our party, but for a complete reshaping of British politics in every way. And it all goes to show that over the course of the last 2 years, since we made that breakthrough in the general election, we have professionalised the party. We've done it at a very, very rapid rate. I'm thrilled and delighted.
Clive Johnston, a 78-year-old retired Baptist pastor, was convicted at Coleraine Magistrates Court in Northern Ireland late last week for essentially preaching the gospel. Johnston held an open-air meeting on the fringes of a buffer zone near Causeway Hospital, a facility that provides abortion services, delivering a sermon on a Sunday when the clinic was closed, without making any reference to abortion during his message. Police directed him to leave the area, and while he complied at the time, he was later prosecuted. He was charged on having tried to influence someone inside a protected safe zone or acting recklessly in doing so, as well as failing to comply with police direction to leave the area. Johnston received a fine of £450 after the judge ruled that he had tested the law to the point where he broke the law. The retired pastor called it a dark day for Christian freedom, saying that holding a Sunday service has been found to be a criminal offence.
I think this is a very dark day for Christian freedom. We held a short, brief, open-air Sunday service near Coleraine Hospital. We made no reference whatsoever to abortion, and yet the buffer zone law is so broad that holding a Sunday service has been found to be a criminal offence. At 78 years, I find myself for the first time convicted of a crime. I know it was an unusual place to hold an open-air service, but that was the point. There shouldn't be any public spaces in Northern Ireland where you can be prosecuted and convicted simply for preaching the gospel. If someone is out there causing trouble, stirring up violence, harassing or verbally attacking people, then absolutely go ahead and prosecute them. But I wasn't doing any of those things, as the police video shows, and everyone involved in this case accepts. Preaching John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but should have everlasting life. If there was ever a time when those near a hospital or far from a hospital needed to hear that message of hope, today is the day. And today in this court, this was criminalised.
When this legislation was being discussed, there were assurances that it would not criminalise gospel preaching, and we find today that this already deeply controversial, unjust buffer zones law has been selectively applied to do just that, to criminalise gospel preaching. This is creeping censorship, quite clearly, and if the ruling is allowed to stand, it will represent a shocking restriction on religious liberty, on freedom of speech. And so we will be working with Clive in the coming days and his legal team to consider our options for appeal. Thank you.
Hungary's new centre-right politician Peter Magyar was sworn into office on Saturday, a date deliberately scheduled to align with Europe Day. During his address to Parliament, Magyar stated that voters gave the TISA party a mandate, not just for a government change, but for a fundamental shift from the previous political system. For the first time since 2014, the European Union flag was raised on the facade of the Hungarian Parliament building, a provocative symbol of submission that Viktor Orban's government had rightly removed over a decade ago. The official anthem of the European Union was also sang in the Parliament, following Magyar's swearing-in ceremony, signalling a clear shift in tone from the previous administration's policies toward Brussels. One user on X called it shocking, stating that Budapest has fallen under a new Brussels elite occupation.
I stand before you deeply moved in this solemn moment. I took an oath a few minutes ago to serve our wonderful country, Hungary, to serve a nation whose first prime minister was Count Lajos Batthyány, who became a martyr. Just as 36 years ago, in 1990. Within these walls, the late Prime Minister József Antall recalled that the fate of Count Lajos Batthyány and Pál Teleki, and later the martyrdom of Prime Minister Imre Nagy for the nation, serves as a warning and an eternal symbol of Hungarian history for every Hungarian head of government. For this homeland, our predecessors gave their lives. To be the Prime Minister of Hungary carries immense political and human responsibility, but also the historical burden that their sacrifice, the sacrifice of millions made for the homeland, must not, cannot be in vain.
In light of the United States' recent 14-point proposal to Iran via Pakistani mediators, Tehran responded with a counter-proposal. The US plan reportedly includes the suspension of Iranian nuclear enrichment, lifting of certain sanctions, and the restoration of free maritime transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Reports say that Tehran's response involves ending the war across all fronts, demands for compensation and recognition of Iranian control elements related to the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump called it totally unacceptable in a post on Truth Social and stated earlier that they have been playing games with the United States.
تنها چیزی که مطالبه کردیم حقوق مشروع ایران بوده. من قضاوت رو به شما و مردممون واگذار میکنم که آیا مطالبه ایران برای خاتمه جنگ در منطقه، مطالبه ایران برای توقف راهزنی دریایی علیه کشتی‌های ایران، اونچه که تحت عنوان محاصره دریایی اسمش گذاشتند، مطالبه ایران برای آزاد شدن دارایی‌های متعلق به مردم ایران که سالهاست به ناحق به خاطر فشار آمریکا در بانک‌های خارجی محبوس شده، آیا اینها مطالبه زیاده‌خواهانه است؟
Over the weekend, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Rome during a two-day visit to reinforce the enduring US-Italy strategic partnership. The meeting took place against the backdrop of some diplomatic tensions between Washington and Italy, largely related to the ongoing conflict involving Iran and differences over the Middle East and freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Both sides publicly emphasized the strength of their long-standing partnership and the need for continued coordination.
Did you make amends with the Pope yesterday?
No, we had a very good meeting. I mean, ultimately, it's important. First of all, there's a lot that we work together with the church, and we talked about those areas that we're working together on, different parts of the world. I know everyone's interested in, the other aspects of it, but I expressed, updated them on the situation with Iran, expressed our point of view about why this was important and the danger that Iran poses to the world, which is largely recognized. At the end, it was a very cordial and important meeting, and it's important to share our points of view and an explanation and an understanding of where we're coming from. And I thought it was very positive.
Mr. Secretary, can you say in your meeting with Prime Minister Meloni whether you talked about the possibility of withdrawing U.S. troops from Italy as well as the possibility of the United States withdrawing from NATO altogether?
No, we didn't discuss any specifics like that, and that's a decision for the president to make. It's a decision every president makes. The fact of the matter, though, is, and I said, publicly, and I've said repeatedly, I've been a strong supporter of NATO throughout my career in the Senate and even now. And one of the advantages of being in NATO is that it allows us to have forces deployed in Europe and bases that allow us a logistical ability to project power in the case of contingencies. But we had a contingency. And some countries in Europe, like Spain as an example, denied us the use of those bases for a very important contingency that in some ways the denial of those bases actually impeded the mission, not severely, but had a cost and in fact even created some unnecessary dangers. So if one of the main reasons why the U.S. is in NATO is the ability to have forces deployed in Europe that we could project to other contingencies, and now that's no longer the case, at least when it comes to some NATO members, that's a problem, and it has to be examined.
In a momentous announcement, U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, in a video address, stated that the War Department is committed to correct unjust dismissals of military soldiers who refused the COVID-19 vaccine under the Biden administration. Hegseth emphasized that they are ready to reinstate patriots who were discharged for no reason, which will include back pay and benefits, and to those who do not wish to take up their uniform again. He noted that the War Department will provide a path for resolution of unearned bonuses and improved dismissal statuses in order for them to access their benefits and remove negative records from their service file.
Joe Biden's mandate to force military service members to take the COVID-19 vaccine was wrongfully and unlawfully applied because the Biden Pentagon refused to grant exemptions for certain medical and faith reasons, not to mention it was an experimental vaccine. As a result, many service members and their families suffered severe hardship, and the department lost trust with the American people. President Trump's executive order on this topic stated that the military unjustly discharged those who refused the vaccine, regardless of their conscience or the years of service given to our nation. He called this what it is, an unfair, overly broad, and completely unnecessary burden on our warriors. Under the leadership of President Trump, the War Department is committed to doing everything we can to make it right, as you know. We want warriors of conscience, warriors who made a principled stand for truth. We want them back in our ranks as soon as possible. We are welcoming back to service patriots who refused the COVID-19 vaccine and were discharged for that reason. If that is you, and you still have the desire to once again wear the cloth of our nation, we are ready to reinstate you with back pay and with benefits. Even if you do not intend to return to service, the War Department will provide a path for resolution of unearned bonuses, upgrades to discharge characterizations that will unlock your well-deserved benefits, and removal of adverse documents from service files. Further, I have directed a review of policies and decision-making to ensure that we do not go down this path again. You raised your right hand and swore an oath to serve and protect the Constitution and our nation. You were mistreated by the Biden Pentagon, and we are fixing that injustice.
And now let's take a recap of today's headlines. Slovak Prime Minister pushes back against EU warnings over Russia Victory Day attendance.
Z reakcií ruského prezidenta Vladimíra Putina na vojnu na Ukrajine mi vyplynuli viaceré vážne odkazy pre mojich partnerov v Európskej únii.
Retired pastor convicted under Northern Ireland Safe Access Zones Act for open-air sermon.
We held a short, brief, open-air Sunday service near Coleraine Hospital. We made no reference whatsoever to abortion, and yet the buffer zone law is so broad that holding a Sunday service has been found to be a criminal offence.
EU flag returns to Hungarian parliament as Magyar becomes prime minister. Hegseth launches path to reinstate troops dismissed for COVID-19 vaccine refusal.
Joe Biden's mandate to force military service members to take the COVID-19 vaccine was wrongfully and unlawfully applied.
And with that, we conclude today's updates from around the globe. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Melissa Negrini, reporting for LN24 International, where we bring you news that is truth, the pulse of trusted analysis. Have a beautiful afternoon further. Goodbye.